Welcome to the Hope for Parents with Struggling Teens podcast. I'm Brandon Jaffe. Join us as we explore relationship and mental health issues by weeding out the trends in the mental health industry to uncover what truly works in improving our emotional well-being and relationships. At Inspired Resolutions Counseling, we specialize in providing interventions and resources for families with teens, focusing on topics such as teen mental health, parenting challenges, and family dynamics.
Today, I'm going to try to tackle parenting styles, boundary setting, parent communication issues, defiant behavior. Probably most importantly, the idea that it's important to have self-reflection and, as a parent, to get good at your own emotional regulation. So if you're a parent who's getting really overwhelmed by daily conflict, I am hosting this episode just for you. Let's start first with parenting styles. Something that often lies at the heart of family tension is that many parents fall into one of two categories: a more passive or nurturing style of parenting versus a more assertive or structured style of parenting. And in some families, one parent leans towards being more laid back, letting teens figure it out on their own, while the other tries to enforce very clear rules and responsibilities. And these differences will create friction and sometimes completely damage marriages. Here's a common scenario. A teen forgets a backpack or a gym bag for sports, and one parent, their inclination will be fix the problem. Go grab that backpack or drive home and get it real quick, or pack it for them and take the responsibility completely out of their hands. Even though it's not a big thing, they shield the child from experiencing the consequences of not being responsible for their gear, so to speak. Then you've got another parent who might think that the teen should face the consequences, and that the gear should be their responsibility. And if they forget it, the valuable lesson of getting chewed out by the coach, or not being prepared, or maybe not even starting in the game over the weekend, is important for the overall development of the child. And so when you've got these two opposing viewpoints, it's a great recipe for arguing and resentment. And in my experience, the conflict usually starts out with the one who wants more structure, saying something like, what are you doing? You're enabling them. You're taking care of them. You never let them do things on their own. And then the other person might say, well, you're just so harsh. And internally, they think that they're protecting their sweet child from this really harsh parent. The conflict starts out with a judgment on both sides. And again, usually the more assertive person starts out the argument. And I think in a lot of family therapy rooms, that person gets targeted instead of targeting the fact that they both are judging each other. One might be a little more soft and quiet in trying to control things, but they're both trying to get control. They're both actually working for the betterment of the child, just on opposite ends of the spectrum. One issue that often gets discussed in my office is the way that each parent reacts to the criticism. Sure, the argument starts because there's differing opinions on how to parent, but it's often the reaction to the criticism and then also the way that the criticism is given. It's natural to feel defensive when your partner or a family member critiques your parenting. And even if the feedback has merit, the tone or the timing can make all the difference in the world. It can go from being somebody who's walking alongside you and cares about the child to somebody who just wants to attack you. And I think that's important. Before you give your partner criticism, really ask yourself, number one, is it important right now? Do I need to give this feedback? Is there a better time to address it? But then also, what is my purpose? How judgmental am I being? Are there other ways to look at the issue? Is there a way to have this conversation and listen to my partner that I disagree with? Imagine a spouse who's stressed out and has been dealing with the kids all day long, and then the other spouse comes home and jumps in and says, you're not doing enough discipline, so you just let them get away with murder. And they're not taking into account everything that you've done all day long. And that comment, that one comment in that moment for the person saying it, isn't that big a deal. It's feedback. You're a little frustrated. You're speaking up and you're participating in the parenting. The other person's going, you don't know what I've been dealing with. You don't know how hard this disciplining thing is. And then the feeling of shame. I know I'm right, but I'm ashamed because my partner doesn't think that I'm a good parent. And figuring out that communication, how are we going to discuss these things? How you discuss it is going to have more of an impact on your child than making the decisions to be more structured or less structured in your parenting. So let's transition into boundaries, because when you have healthy boundaries, it's a game changer in parenting. When you have healthy boundaries that you and your partner are following through with, it makes it so that nobody has to speak harshly. Nobody has to protect the child from the harsh speaking parent, because you're just following through with less words, not more, calm demeanor, not an angry demeanor. And it becomes a part of almost the culture of the family. It becomes clear that this is just how things are done. And so setting boundaries isn't about controlling your teenager. It's about clarifying expectations. And you can't do it to change them, but a side result is you open up an opportunity for them to learn accountability. They may or may not take it, but at least you're giving them that opportunity. And if you're not consistent, it goes out the window. Boundaries are nothing without consistency. And I say that over and over again, and I'm going to keep repeating that. I'll give you an example. You need to do your homework before using your iPhone. What you're protecting would be, I don't want to participate in my child not doing their homework. I don't want to feel taken advantage of or used by providing something as big as a phone while they don't take care of their very important responsibilities regarding school. And so if you let that slide, what you're doing is you're sending different messages. It's mixed messages, whether you realize it or not. You can say the same thing, but everybody knows actions speak louder than words in many cases. The inconsistency often leads to power struggles, and it perpetuates that pushing the limits to see what they can get away with. When you've got healthy boundaries, it's easier to balance the two personalities that we've been talking about, which is one that has a more nurturing personality and one that is more geared towards fostering independence. And those two types of parents can actually get along really well. It's a great duo for parenting healthy, awesome human beings. But that balance of the two personalities and styles becomes really tricky. It's interesting because a lot of times parents, they don't know when to let go a little bit and to give more responsibility. And if you pay attention to the signs, you'll see that they seek out responsibility on their own. And in a healthy human being, what happens is they begin to basically just show signs that they're ready for more responsibility. Now, it doesn't look like, hey, they've been really good, therefore they're ready for responsibility. It looks different than that. It's really easy to point out in small children, because small children begin to say, I want to do it on my own. I want to do it on my own. And we let them do it on their own, and then they fail, and we're cool with it because, it's just things like feeding themselves or tying their shoe. And parents are usually pretty good at recognizing that sign. But in teens, what you look for is that they can already do the independent responsibility thing, but that's not what it looks like. There are other signs, such as seeking it out, such as reactions and responses to certain events in their life, certain things that they'll say. And it's our job to figure out that balance. Sometimes they'll give you signs that they want to manage their own schedule. They start talking about wanting to get a part-time job and manage their own finances. When you see some of these signs, it's important to start finding healthy ways to foster that independence. And if they drop the ball, if they fail, it's really important to let them fail, to let them experience consequences so that they can grow. It might mean that they miss out on an important event. It might mean that they have a really big hole that they dug in their life that they have to get out of. And it's our job to walk alongside them, but not completely rescue them from every misstep that they have. And that may mean that they wanted to take care of their own gear, or they need to take care of their own gear for practice, and they forgot it. And it's one thing to say, hey, isn't that your bag over there? It's another to take full responsibility, go drive back when you realize they forgot it, go get it, and then deliver it to their practice. I'm not saying don't help them, but really ask to what lengths you're going to help them. This leads to an important dynamic that I want to talk about, and that's the communication dynamics when you have these parenting disagreements and differences. The communication dynamics plays a pivotal role in how we as a couple can follow through with boundaries, how the conflicts are resolved, what we teach our kids, and how our partners take our criticism. A lot of times it just boils down to what's your tone, what's your volume, and what words are you using. There's so many ways to say the same thing with different connotations and a different spirit behind it. I challenge everybody to not deliver hard messages during the crisis. And the moment you have that stomach feeling or that irritated tingle in your body, it's probably not a good time to criticize your partner. It's probably a good time to just sit and wait. Your delivery, your timing in communication is really important. Another example is, picture this. Your team's in the kitchen, they've just spilled a drink, and they're really flustered. And you walk in, you see the spilled drink, and in your head, you're remembering all the other times they spilled things or walked away from a mess, and your comment is, why are you so careless? What is wrong with you? Even if your heart wasn't in such a deep, harsh place, even if you just mean to remind them to be more cautious, your tone, your accusatory tone and your harshness damages the relationship. It damages your ability to influence your teen. Look, your teen's already struggling emotionally, most likely, right? They're going through the most difficult period of their life when it comes to emotions and it comes to regulating their own dysregulation. And because of their development, they are going to take things more personally. It's your job not to take things personally. And just because of the makeup and the developmental stage they're in, they are more likely to take things personally, to be angry at the slightest criticisms. And it's our job not to take that personally. I think that sometimes we forget that when we're talking to a teen or our partner about things, there's a whole lot that plays into how they receive you. And if you have an important message and you want to be influential, guess what? It's your job to figure out the best way and the best time to deliver your message. And that reminds me about this thing, I guess we could call it the apology paradigm. Often one parent or teen might feel like they deserve an apology. We all get that. I've said that in my life many times. And then the other person is in a totally different place. They're thinking, I didn't do anything wrong. I don't agree with you. And I was just stating the fact. I'm trying to help our situation, help our relationship. And so there begins this tug of war, this mismatch in the expectations for the apology. And then both parties usually begin a resentment. If you have the expectation that people apologize to you, you're missing the spirit of apologies, and you're going to be disappointed often. Because sometimes the biggest disagreements can never be agreed upon. You're not going to figure out who's right and wrong. The expectation of an apology can often be the thing that damages that relationship even more. Now, that doesn't mean we don't want to teach our kids to apologize and make amends. It's great to teach this lesson, for instance. A true apology isn't just, I'm sorry. It's acknowledging the other person's feelings and experience. It's maybe even clarifying what your intent was, but that's a sticky one, right? Because your intent is what's ticking them off, and then sometimes they won't accept it. Sometimes people are in such a place regarding their relationship that apologies and amends can't happen during that season. But it's good to teach these things, and children need to be taught. And I think an amends/apology should always include a plan for handling the difficult situation in the future. And again, this is a lesson, not an expectation. I also wanted to talk about defiant behaviors. A common concern for parents who have struggling teens is that there are this struggle of a teen who outright refuses to follow rules to a more subtle resistance. And that can look like sarcasm or passive aggressive behavior. And when a teen is defiant, a lot of times there's this tension between parents of, do we do anything? What do we do? What should the punishment be? Do we just let them suffer the natural consequences of whatever it is? Do we set boundaries and just follow through? Do we have a big discussion? And so it becomes the source of attention for the two personality types in parents. The defiant teen really challenges parents' ego and then their parenting styles. Imagine a scenario where your child consistently misses curfew and you're torn between grounding them or allowing them to face whatever consequences there might be. If you ground them, let's say they can't go to their sport event, and then the big consequences, they have to face their coach, et cetera, et cetera. And I can remember things like this happening to me when I was a child. The interesting piece is that you will have one parent who doesn't want to ground for sports and doesn't want to take things away and doesn't want these consequences, but maybe just these consequences. And one parent's going, no, we got to give the punishment that teaches them the lesson. And here's the problem. You never know if the teen is going to rebel because they have consequences, give up because they have consequences, or if they're going to learn their lesson. We teach at this center boundaries instead of punishment and consequences. But that's because by the time parents come to us, they've tried punishment and they've tried rewards for a long time usually. What's more important is to acknowledge your reaction. The one parent who is more militant, maybe comes off more harsh and angry, should be really focusing on toning it down, saying less, not yelling, listening even though they don't agree. And the parent who is likely to nurture and maybe even enable, they want to be focused on making sure that even though it's going to be hard, they follow through with whatever boundaries were discussed in the past, following through and being consistent and not enabling. And so when you have those two types focusing on themselves and working on that, they can come to a place where they parent in a really healthy and influential way. It's important when you're managing defiant behavior in your child, you have to separate your emotional reactions from the parenting follow through. That comes to the point I want to make on emotional self-regulation. Parents are going to go on an emotional roller coaster your entire life of parenting, and probably even when your children are adults. But it's crucial. It is so important that you compartmentalize your emotional reaction from your actual reaction with your kids. If you can have an emotional reaction, do it in private with your partner or with your therapist or whatever it might be. That means that when your child is totally out of hand, slamming doors, saying mean things, even though you feel like you need to show them a lesson, you do not follow their behavior and give it back to them. In order to do that as a parent, you have to be good at taking accountability. You have got to reflect on your own past behaviors often. And that's whether it's the parent who is really angry or the parent who is overly enabling and nurturing. You want to take a step back. For the nurturing parent, you want to ask yourself, am I inadvertently enabling my teen because I keep stepping in? The other parent, am I reacting harshly because of other reasons in my life? And am I allowing that to damage my current relationship with my family? It's important that you recognize patterns, voice those patterns, repeat, and work towards more consistent, healthy responses in every aspect of your life. And then what's rad is when you do this, when two parents are working on themselves to become healthier, they can have conversations about themselves and the process they're going through that's in conjunction with the teen's process of life. And you will be more influential. You have a higher likelihood of teaching them and influencing them. I challenge parents listening to, number one, some of you, I want you to identify your overly enabling behaviors. Some of you, I want you working on more empathetic, patient responses. Teens are frustrating. And their defiant behavior feels like a personal attack. However, stepping back and remembering they are navigating their own emotional storms. They may or may not mean to show you disrespect, and you don't have to tolerate disrespect because that you do through boundaries. But being patient and act tolerant. I'm not saying be a doormat. And then align parenting styles. I'm not saying be the same and come to the middle or compromise. What I'm saying is find a way to fit your parenting styles, your personalities along with each other. It's important to stay away from your emotional triggers. One parent might have to do one area of parenting while the other steps out. It's important that all parents communicate with clarity, simplicity, and respect. Be consistent in the boundaries. I suggest you allow for natural consequences and then model emotional regulation by showing and talking about your own reflection and your own ability to adapt. That will make a difference. I hope some of this has empowered you. I hope that you're taking some of these concepts will empower your children, your teens. And my hope and prayer is that you feel more confident and at peace with your parenting.
The Hope for Parents with Struggling Teens podcast is an Inspired Resolutions production. Hosted by Brandon Jaffe. Edited and mixed by Natalie Atkinson. Music by Natalie and Sean Atkinson. Inspired Resolutions Counseling is based in Yorba Linda, California. Whether you're interested in joining our group, seeking therapy services, or exploring more of our resources, you can find us on our website, Instagram, Facebook, or YouTube at Inspired Resolutions Counseling.